Ever feel stalled in your progress on the drums? Like you keep going into the shed, working on all the stuff you're supposed to work on, but when you play, it's like Groundhog Day? Well, you may be the victim of a stale practice routine. Something that stopped working, or stopped working well. But fear not, because today I'm going to show you a simple principle that almost always helps to get me unstuck, and which I pull out from time to time in emergencies. Kind of a break glass in case of practice. So that's it, right? Just a one-step quick fix? A little power up? One and done and you're off to the races? Well, not so fast. Because if it were that easy, we'd all be, well. So we'll also talk about when and why this thing I'm going to show you is effective. And way more importantly, answer a fundamental question. How important is practice quality for drummers? Can you waste years in the practice room not getting very much better? And on the other side, is there such a thing as better practice that can save you time along the journey? This is kind of the third video in a series I've been doing exploring some of the big questions of drumming. The first was, is talent a lie? Stepario Siberiano says it's all hard work. Spoiler, it's probably both. The second was 5 reasons you're still an intermediate drummer, which explored the most common bottlenecks holding back drummers who had a few years under the belt, but felt blocked from accessing their true voice. And now this video, which aims to answer the question, can better practice really make you better faster? Through the lens of this very specific practice tip, which I promise I'll tell you. In fact, if you just want the tip, you can skip to the next chapter. But if you're here to take the journey and see the matrix a little, so you can reverse engineer the whole process and do it on your own, maybe watch the whole thing. I'm Nate. This is the 80/20 drummer, and this is kind of what we do here. Think of this as drum money ball. Drummy ball. And I'm like your crash test dummy. Zach Grooves is out here on the bleeding edge, and I'm kind of the regular guy trying to touch that level and report back. And talk about what it's like and what it takes. Today, we're turning our lens on practice. Today on 80/20. Simple tip to get you unstuck in your practice. / does better practice really make you better faster? Stay tuned. And folks, if you sat through even that much exposition to the video and kept watching, you might be a fit for my mailing list, where we get the podcast early every week, lessons of the week a day early every week along with transcriptions, and exclusive offers. It's free to join, and all you need to do is click the link below the player and enter your email address on the next page. If you're one of us, we'll see you inside. Now, on with the video. In part 1 of this video, we'll focus on making good on the promise of the title, showing you a simple thing that, provided other things are lined up right, can break you out of a rut. Watch this lick from Zach Grooves. Did you catch that? Why doesn't it sound like that when we do it? Is it magic? Well, yes, in a manner of speaking. But not because any one thing he's doing is some crazy magic pattern that if you just knew you'd sound like Zach. Nope, it's just creative combos of stuff you might already know how to play. So why does it sound like that? Well, here's a clip of Zach explaining, which might help elucidate it a little.
So I made up this proposal to my father. I was like, Dad, listen, if I treat the drums in my practice like a job, 8-hour days, hour lunch break, so like 9-hour days.
Yup, 8 hours a day. In other words, Zach is taking stuff we all know how to do and uber refining it. But let's break it down even further. So there are 2 main things that make Zach's playing special, and they're the same as what makes Corey Fonville or Noah Feuerbringer special. Meaning, if you learned their lick and practice it day after day, they'd still sound better than you. The first is that they're improvising it. That's obvious. But the second is the speed, the precision, and the power. The good news about that is you can sound more like that with some of the combos and licks you already know. The bad news is you're going to have to grind a little. In a little bit, we'll talk axiomatically about what makes certain types of practice better than others, and work from first principles to decide what makes better practice. But first, let's just share what I've been doing the past few days. And this is the bit that hopefully delivers on the promise of the title. Exactly what to try if your practice seems stalled out. First, I want the goal super solid in my head. For example, weak sauce, Zach. From that comparison, I identify that he's playing with a lot more power and precision, and I kind of have a mental picture of what that looks like. While I'm not expecting to play like Zach in a week, I know if I can move the needle on the power and precision of the stuff I already know, I'll be a step closer. Then, I'll need to take a step back and appreciate my own unique voice, have a me day, take a bubble bath, etc. I'm only partly joking. For a video on the paradox of grinding but still appreciating ourselves for who we are, just click the card on your screen. Anyway, now I'll architect a mini sprint around that goal. Increase my power and precision measurably, while maintaining my improvisational flow. First, I'll take 16ths or 30 seconds. I'll put the metronome on 16th offbeats and just slow it way down. I'll start at a very comfortable tempo. I've already learned a bunch of combos and stickings, which we'll talk more about later, so now I'm just focusing on volume and precision. Gradually, over the course of about an hour, I'll bump up the metronome to like 160, which is the speed limit for me hearing 16th offbeats while staying smooth. Then I'll put the metronome on the last quarter of the bar and go up to the limit of what's comfortable. Then I'll take an after recording. That's hour one. Then maybe I'll take a break, catch a coaching call, answer some emails. Then for the last 40 minutes to an hour, I'll do sextuplets. I'll put the metronome on the third triplet of each beat. Today I'll start at 170 and see how much I can bump it up. At the slower tempos, I'm trying to ingrain better habits when it comes to power and precision, all the time maintaining comfort and flow with the improv. For a video that goes deeper into the component elements of what power and precision are, see the second video in this series at the card on your screen. Now I'll take an after video of that. And that's the day one routine. Now I just need to repeat this every day for at least 2 weeks, maybe even a month. And that's what we call the rage cave.
These kids are too soft.
Sometimes when your practice is stalled, you just need to pick something really specific and focus all your energy there. So that's it, right? The lesson's over. You just gotta grind, bro. It's the unsexy putting in the long hours. But remember the folks who practice the same thing for years and never seem to get any better. How do you know for sure the thing you're working on isn't like that thing is for them? So challenge one is making sure you're choosing something that will actually move you forward. But that's just one part. Because sometimes you should keep working on the thing you're already working on. And the reason you're not improving fast enough is you keep chasing shiny objects. Or maybe it's all a wash, and an hour of practice is an hour of practice is an hour of practice. In part 2 of this video, we'll explore the following questions. 1. How do we know better practice actually helps over just grinding? And 2. Assuming we prove better practice is actually better, how do we even approach that? I might touch 2 on a high level in this video and then save the deep dive for a part 4. Anyway. It's rare that I'll get people in my comments actually saying that all practice is created equal. Most people either assume it's all talent all the way, so why practice anyway, or generally accept that better practice makes you better faster. In my Is Talent a Lie video, I referred to the famous 10,000 hour study from Anders Ericsson. Even that study has deliberate practice in the title. And one of the big critiques of the pop psychology interpretation of that is it's not just 10,000 hours, it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. But I don't just want to appeal to authority. I want to prove this axiomatically, or at least by starting with things we all agree are true and connecting the dots. To begin, let's talk about something called specific reps. Know how when you travel and stay in an Airbnb, everything seems to take longer? Doing the dishes, brushing your teeth, taking a shower, taking out the garbage? If you don't believe me, pay attention next time. Meanwhile, at home, everything feels smooth. The next time you hop in the shower, pay attention to exactly what you do. I'll bet you have a series of 5 to 6 little steps you run through without even thinking about it. For me, and I'll do this fully clothed, it looks something like this. You actually have a muscle memory for your own house or apartment, and you can do things there by heart because you've memorized where everything is. Well, if you agree with that first part, this is all we need to establish that specific practice works. We know that practice works, and that it's not just house talent, because you weren't so good at it when you first moved in, and now you are. And we know that specificity helps, because if it didn't, you'd be just as quick in that new Airbnb as in your own place. So this gives us our first guiding principle, specific reps. They're specific because you have to learn each house of the apartment. And learning one apartment might generalize a little to all apartments. For instance, if you can drive one car, you can drive most cars. But there's still that last bit of specific learning curve that'll make you more efficient in that specific space. And they're reps because you don't know where everything is in a strange apartment on day one with your eyes closed. You need a couple months of daily reps to get comfortable. If we apply this to the drums, I want specific reps when I'm rage grinding because I saw a Mike Mitchell lick that made me feel like an utter imposter. And after I recentered with the bubble bath and some affirmations, again, not a joke about the recentering part at least. So that means I'll pick something pretty narrow and specific to focus on, like increasing power and precision over a specific range of tempos in 30 seconds in sextuplets. The reps part is obvious. That's just the hours I spend working on it in the shed day after day. But what happens if I choose the wrong specific thing? Because I could see Zach or Mike and think, okay, I'm just gonna work on my double kick. I could even be really specific, like these exercises at these subdivisions for this tempo goal, and I could put in a ton of reps, but it probably wouldn't move me much closer to my stated goal. Which brings us to principle 2, relevancy. Relevancy just means I'm choosing a specific thing and then repping it, and that specific thing is a very good proxy for my goal. You could come up with some very specific exercises for improving your tennis, but you probably wouldn't use those if you were trying to improve your pool, for example. This one is pretty obvious, so we don't need to dwell here. But there's one more principle I want to cover before we have to leave it here or we'll be way over time. Knowing when to quit. Because you know those folks I keep referring to, who we hear practicing the same thing every day, who never seem to get any better? Well, we now hopefully have some principles to tell us why. What they're practicing isn't relevant to their goals, probably because it's long outlived its usefulness. We can only make so much progress on a new concept before we hit a wall and start getting bored, or no longer hear the subtleties. Like the person who's lived with cats in their house for decades, no longer smelling them. Whereas any guest will immediately get a strong whiff. But maybe that exercise they keep doing for decades, long after it's outlived its usefulness, used to be super relevant. Hence, principle 3, knowing when to quit. Even the most relevant exercises will eventually outlive their usefulness. To improve your playing as a whole, you need to go from relevant challenge to relevant challenge. How do you know when to move on? One good way is by recording yourself. Take a before video before your side quest. Then take one at the end of every week. Wait a couple days, then watch it back. If you see a big jump, then see things level off, that's a good sign it's time to move on to your next challenge. Another good way is just your general feeling. If you're getting bored with something and it's been more than 3 weeks, probably also a good signal. One note of caution. If it's been fewer than 3 weeks and you're sure your goal is relevant, you may just need to grind a little more. Sorry. Okay, so we've been super focused on architecting exquisite artificial training environments, like AlphaGo, the chess program where the programmers programmed a bunch of human-created algorithms into it. But what about when it's better to just play creatively and see what comes out? Like AlphaZero, where they just let it loose to train on real games of chess and it developed its own rules. What about when we miss the forest for the trees and are too focused on maps and miss the territory? Because that's a thing too. Sometimes it's better to design a very specific practice regime, controlled in the lab, double-blind with placebo. And sometimes it's better to just play and see what comes up, because that's going to track with reality more closely. And knowing which is which can spell the difference between cutting to the chase and wasting a lot of time. And it's that dichotomy we'll discuss next time on part 4 of this series. Until then, dudes, did we do a thing? If you've made it this far, you should definitely subscribe to my list. Podcast early every week, video with transcription or study guide early every week, and exclusive access to members-only offers. Just click the link below the player and enter your email address on the next page. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoyed this. See you again real soon in another lesson of the week.